I'm realizing like you have shown me as a weaver, weaving is fun for me. It's not something I have to like take a class in. It's just how it is. And it's fun and it's valuable and right. And so I don't know. The idea of fun with social impact is something I'm playing with in 2024. Because, boy, is the world really heavy. And it's just like, I want to get under the covers and call it a day otherwise.
Welcome to the Earth Mates podcast. Together, we explore how to find your path from climate anxiety to community action by asking, who are you? Because just like any relationship, that matters. So get ready to be raw and real, but also playful and silly with me, Chief Relationship Officer Amber Peoples, as we discover what's possible through the lens of the 5 Earth Archetypes. Curiosity and subscription buttons highly encouraged.
But we've been inculcated into this idea that there's a certain way of doing leadership. If you're not outgoing and you're not charismatic and you're not, you're not, then you're not a leader. And I just don't believe that's true. And Amber, I like in terms of you developing this system, I'm curious, like for you, if that's the same thing you're thinking, it's like it's totally not true.
For sure. Yeah, that's, I mean, how this even developed for me was, I had my own kind of existential moment in 2016. You talked about yours after watching The Inconvenient Truth, and I had mine in 2016. And for me, one of the ways that I get answers when I'm asking really big questions is I will literally hear voices sometimes. And I heard 2 sentences. I heard, the earth is your home, arts are your skill set. And for 5 minutes, I was awestruck. And then I went, what do I do with that? And I followed it. I followed the journey, because another thing that shows me I'm on the right path is synchronicities start to unfold. And as I was asking questions and going on coffee dates and doing research, opportunities and interesting things began to connect and crystallize, as is the term that you used. And one of the things that was really important for me in the journey was to first bring together arts and ecology. I wanted to know, okay, these feel so different. Like how does that connection point look? How can we put the preposition with between the two, arts with ecology? How does that look?
Ooh.
And I began to develop that. And then I realized, there were several aha moments, but the one that really kind of formalized the archetypes was taking a class with actually a physicist named Fritjof Capra. And he was talking about the whole course was around systems theory. And it was designed for community members, artists, mental health professionals, fair housing authority people, whoever, anybody out in community, to kind of get the scientific understanding of systems theory in a way that we could digest. And one of the sessions, he broke down these 5 different ways of understanding how we belong. And it was that moment that I was like, that's it. That's this full spectrum of how, if arts are my skill set, that doesn't mean it's yours. And it doesn't mean it's this person. So, but what are these other things? And so for me, that was that moment. And what I really love about kind of that last extended answer that you gave was you started by saying, Amber, you tell me more, but this is how I think this fits me. And by the end, you were like owning it. You were like, yeah, actually now I really see it. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't even have to do anything. This is awesome. Because you'd found the journey on your own. And with, some of those, what I call superpowers of the Weaver types, is that Weaver types tend to have this really high tolerance for ambiguity and complexity. And that's, been definitely shown throughout your story. And, all we did was go chronological. There was nothing fancy about this trajectory of this interview so far. It's just been chronological. But there were these moments where for you, they had been ambiguous and complex. And you commented a couple times on, oh, I'm starting to see the thread here. This is interesting. And then also there's this ability to have, and you talked about this with brand storytelling, to have this goal, to have this strategy, to have this dream, but be open-minded as to how do you get there. And that really feels like the process that you take these leaders through to find their story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when they find their story, they find their leadership. It's like we actually own the fact that we were born leaders to begin with.
I love that.
So I love, there's not been a single person that I've not met. And I'm talking about even strangers on subways who, for whatever reason, would tell me their life story when I was 11.
Oh my goodness.
So if we're flashbacking here and tying it together, that I realized, like, I love what you said, the earth, you said the earth is my home.
Yeah.
And I also believe there's a galaxy in every human being, and we've only seen this much teeny infinitesimal point of our amazing selves. And so finding those moments of awe, what you just said, Amber, struck me, because that moment of awe, I felt it when you said it, and then just watched how, in letting yourself be in it, this whole door of opportunity opens up, right? And it's almost like we live in a world now where everything happens so fast. We're expected to have an instant answer yesterday, right? And what I kept hearing as you were talking, like, now as we've been talking, has been like following the awe. Like, what happens when we just dare to take a moment where we're not scrambling to do 5,000 things, and maybe that moment of awe will be there, that's going to be that guiding light for us of what we're really fascinated by and what we really want to do, or that moment. I feel like in the blog, when I said I came home from Inconvenient Truth, I remember I like that. It was kind of like that because it was on like a Wednesday night, like on a work night, and I was getting home at 11, and I was like, I should just go to bed. The world is over. That was but I was like, I can't go to bed like that. I'm tired. I got to get up in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I needed to have some space. I don't think I realized what I was doing was trying to find some moment of hope or awe instead of just submitting, to the bed or whatever, just collapsing and just like calling it.
Yeah.
That comes in. And then when that comes in, there's actually something amazing that even if you have no idea what you're going to do with it in the beginning, right? So I don't know, maybe the Weaver, you could tell, but it's like, and what you said about the Weaver is the way I see it. I'd be so curious about other Weavers too, is the weaving kind of, it kind of it's like metaverse jumping a little bit. So if you don't know the answer, for me, I'm like, I wonder where that came from. It's like suddenly I'll be in, 11-year-old me, and then I'll be in like, 32-year-old me. And it's like it's like movies that flash backwards and forwards. I love that. I think it almost even encouraged me to weave more, to find meaning in places. If I can't get it in a straight line today, I don't need to bang my head against the wall. That's why I always think in constellations. Like even though I can't, like, astronomy is very frustrating for me because I have a hard time seeing unless you do connect the dots. It's very hard for me to see, but I think stars are super cool.
Yep.
But I challenged myself to go, there is a picture in here that I'm missing. And if I let myself play, or maybe ask for help, to have somebody help me play so I can see what I need to see, then yeah, there could be something really new and cool in here. And I think, like you, one of the things that I really responded to when you first shared with me what your mission was is that I have this mission of wanting to help people really own, and embody their unique perspective and leadership in the world, and to be able to contribute that someplace, because you and I know it's an all hands on deck kind of situation now.
100%.
And that this leadership, what if it could be fun and not a slog? Because I think a lot of reasons why do-gooders, I've been in it, have gone through burnout, have been through, "Oh, I'm not doing enough. It's not, and it's exhausting to think you have to save the world, which is why I think for me, storytelling becomes fun, because as children, we love story. So it's like, how can we be leaders where it's actually joyful and satisfying and fun and energizing back to us, even if it's hard? And I feel like that comes into connecting with what lights us up. And our leadership is like, kind of, the body is baked in those things together, if we could give ourselves permission to do that. Like, that's where the human design part, I think, has come in for me, because I've had years of feeling guilty, beating myself up that I'm not successful enough. When I was trying to dive into these, problems, it's like I'll burn out and then just give up, and then I beat myself up for giving up. And I don't do that anymore, because I've changed that story and accessed a different part of me where it could be fun. And I'm realizing, like, you have shown me as a weaver, weaving is fun for me. It's not something I have to like take a class in. It's just how it is. And it's fun and it's valuable, and right. And so I don't know, the idea of fun with social impact is something I'm playing with in 2024. Because, boy, is the world really heavy, and it's just like, I want to get under the covers and
Right.
call it a day otherwise.
Whew, right. Yeah. And what I love about your story too is this path towards fun, and towards weaving, and just towards, those 2 years that you talked about where you were trying to go through this process for yourself, and the challenges of how do I tell my story when it feels like a half hour long, is it actually points to one of the shadow sides of the weaver, because everybody has our strengths and our weaknesses, and that's, it's a piece to identify. And I think what's really beautiful about your story is that by identifying this particular shadow, it's the way that you're now helping people. And this particular shadow, I think that happens with the weaver type, is this amazing ability to weave can feel so self-evident to weaver types that it's like, you don't do that? What? What, you don't, this doesn't automatically happen to you? Like, what? Or, you go, there's this ability to go off into this weaving direction, and there's people back here going, you left me behind over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love that part of your journey has really been to find a fun way to deal with that challenge and help others with it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because it's really illuminating for me why I love, like, coaching and guiding people through the Own Your Message program, because they are essentially learning some techniques of weaving themselves. And then I'm like, kind of, the weaver that will help them bring their narratives together, and how to make it fun and also meet people where they're at. So I think one of the things I've learned by teaching has come from having really good writing teachers before me who were incredibly patient, and recognizing that there were some areas of craft that I had to learn that did not come easily to me. Um, and that, they would find different ways to help me access it. So similarly, one of the things that I've learned, I'm in right now, the sixth cohort is going through Own Your Message. And I've learned that there's so many different lenses and ways to kind of enter into your own movie in the making, you know? And so some people are big picture people and they think in big, broad themes, and they have a hard time remembering the different moments of their story. Or how could something so like that's like total minutia actually lead to something powerful, right? And then there are other people who are super detail oriented, like they remember all these moments, but they're like, I have no idea how this is rising into a big idea I have for the world. And one of the things that I appreciate is that I've had coaches that have, you know, taught me through different modalities exactly how different our brains are, exactly how different we are in terms of what we're seeing, and that we're not seeing the same object the same way. And that's a cool thing. So once I was able to sit in the value of my own story and not feel insecure anymore, because I think as a weaver, I felt like a little bit like an oddball. And so that it was almost the opposite thing for me. It wasn't so much, I was like, how can you, well, yes, that's true. I was like, how can you not see the connections? But it was also me questioning, if I'm the only one who sees it this way, I must be wrong, was the way I used to go about things before, because everybody else seemed to be moving in a different direction. People, you know, whatever. So I think owning this fact that there is, in the right context and place and problem solving, that this fun aspect of weaving actually helps people crystallize things, because they know, because they're coming in already going, I know I'm more than just my job title, and I know that I'm more than just the degree I got or this last award I might have won. And then you feel crappy again because you're only as good as your last thing. And they want to bring together all these different parts of that. Now it's just a weaving class. So it's so much. So it's fun. For me, it's fun. Like, I don't actually feel like, maybe it, yeah, you, I don't know, maybe that is working with my shadow. Well, I'm helping people work with their shadow sides of seeing the value in here. And it's just fun to go, well, why don't we turn this story sideways? And what happens if you took this story about you when you were 11 and just kind of put it next to the story of you at 28, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize I was doing the exact same thing in these totally different contexts, right? So that's fun. Like for me, it's fun when people get those light bulb moments of going, oh, I'm not this imposter who doesn't have it together. It's just, I just don't have the fabric or the narrative that's showing me how it all fits together, because I'm not a one note, you know? I'm this human being that was like a 4,000,001 miracle of even being here, taking that first breath. Like, it's an amalgamation of like so many things. And it just feels overwhelming, or one can feel underestimated or undervalued until we put those blocks together and have them click together. And then it's like you can't wait to do the work that you're meant to do. Right? Yeah. So I feel like with work, whether it's like with the environment, any of the major things that need support, it just can be, we can so quickly feel self-defeated, right? And that's where I feel like having our clicked in story gives us a bedrock to stand on, a springboard to jump off of, a place to come back to if we do decide we're going to embrace chaos and the unknown. It's like, okay, I don't like that, but I'm going to go ahead and try this thing. And it doesn't work. You have some place to come back to that anchors you. Yeah, that's kind of, I think, what's helped me over the years be able to be more brave in terms of my heart for social change that feels like it's been run over many times in my life of feeling defeated many times, but like if it's part of my spirit, I can't give up on it. But then I'd be like, oh, I'm no good at it. That's what I used to tell myself. It's like, I really told myself, it's like, you can't make a difference because you're too sensitive, you're too this, you're too that. Had to switch into, but what am I?
Mm-hmm.
What am I?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's really the heart of these archetypes is we have this other, this big thing, like you talked about, leaving inconvenient truth with a sense of defeatism. And I think a lot of people feel that it's just like, what can I do? And it's kind of a defeatist question. And so the place that I start is, who are you? You are on this planet for a reason. You belong here. Let's make sure that gift is being used to support and connect with our home, which is the earth. And that leads us to our last two questions that I love to ask everybody, because believe it or not, we are near the end of the hour. It went by so fast. I love talking with you so much, Stephanie. I always feel like it's such a vibrant place where just awe. We've talked about the word awe, and I've actually did a whole entire solo episode on the science of awe. It is such a fascinating topic, and I always feel that when you and I are talking. And so I am going to wrap this bow at the end here with our final two questions, which is a word that I don't know if we've actually said it out loud yet, but we've definitely talked about its concepts, which is relationship. And that in so many of these aspects, once we figure out who we are, it becomes this question of, well, now how do I engage in relationship, and particularly a reciprocal relationship with other types, with other forms of living beings? And that could be plants, that could be the elements, that could be animals. Which brings us back to this element of us being a part of nature, and earth being our home. And so I'm curious, with all these different ways that we've talked about relationships but not actually called it that up until this point, I'm curious what you think the kind of either maybe the role of reciprocal relationships within this, or perhaps a definition of it. But I'm curious what that brings up for you as I point this word out.
I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and I would say it's in moments of awe. For me, reciprocal relationship right now means mutually life-giving relationships. So, as somebody who had been, we're going to talk about trees actually, because I'm seeing this all in trees. There, for the longest time, I operated as like the giving tree in that book by Shel Silverstein, where I would just, you need a branch here, you need some seeds here, and then there's nothing left. And I would go through this cycle I had hinted at of burnout and despair and retreating from people. And that caused its own heartache, right? And so it's been interesting for me, like this journey of what would life giving be. And so there's a book someone told me about, The Secret Life of Trees, or The Hidden Life of Trees. And there's a documentary. I watched the documentary, and it's fascinating that they build their own communities. Their roots are below. If one, say somebody, I'm treating them like people. If a tree has lost its nutrients, the others will start to feed it this way. There's some trees where if there is a predator around, like they'll warn, and then they'll start sending off odors. I am fascinated in particular with the sequoia tree, which I just wrote a post on LinkedIn about this. This is how I really feel that this brand storytelling and leadership comes together. The sequoia tree is naturally fire resistant. So it's one of the few fireproof trees, and it even benefits from fire. Like it's found a way to be from fire. And just like other trees, their roots, they have their own roots, but they're intertwined with others, right? And so for me, I think the important thing is I've asked myself the question, whenever there's an opportunity to partner with somebody or work with a client, is this life giving to me? And I ask them, would this be life giving to you? And if we both say yes, that's worth investing some energy into, right? As long as your values align and you want to go in the same direction in that one aspect, right? So I've really almost reset all of my relationships in the last 2 years. And so when we were in Impact Accelerator together, that was actually the beginning of me starting to like manage this forest of relationships where it's like, I'm going to pour into people who also we have this mutuality, there's an ecosystem going on, right? Because that's how we're all going to create more together and do things together. So to me, the mutual life giving is really important in terms of when I think of reciprocity now. Whatever life giving means to you, whatever it means to me, it doesn't have to mean the same thing, but it means that our life force is turned on and we're both in it, you know? So that's what that means. And for me, I feel like in terms of the work I'm doing now heading into this year with Own Your Message is that I really want to nurture a grove of sequoias. It's like, so every thought leader to own their sequoia-ness, to be able to have those strong roots in who you are, like what you said, and what your message is, so you can be fire resistant, because most of us don't want to go out in this public space because it is so freaking scary. And let's just face it, it's a hot mess out there. And then, but then I realized it's not enough to just stand on your own story. You do need your roots intertwining with other people. You need that courage to be able to step out if you're going to say something that is against the step, like if you're going to nudge people and fire people up and be a trailblazer, that's lonely, and loneliness can extinguish our energy too. So I think that, to your point, those two things have been going hand in hand. I've only been learning it in the last few months as I've been, as these amazing leaders have been coming through, and then they build their story and they come back and they said, I felt really bolstered, but then I'm out there for so long by myself. It's like they need a community too. And so we're all reinforcing. This is where it was like I starting to create this community for the alumni and for clients and for, other people to help each other remember who we are and help each other to reinforce ourselves if we're feeling isolated or lonely in the thing that we're doing, that where we're all the way out there, to be like, no, I got you. This is brilliant. Keep going. If somebody, you don't want to bear with the criticism, if you're going to put something out there and it might be controversy, then let's have the other sequoias and the other people say, look, hey, everybody, I'm going to put this thing out. I might be met with a lot of opposition, and I don't want it to take me down. And that people be like, hey, I'm going to volunteer to check your comments, and I'm only going to send you the comments that are positive, or we're going to jump into, whatever it is. But this is something new that I'm playing with to help us be able to sustain our life force around what's really important and vulnerable and scary, but also purposeful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some amazing points there around that question around mutually life-giving. And I love that, even if both of you say yes, it can mean different things to each of the individuals in that situation. And I think that's really beautiful, because that shows how this interwoven root network can own the fact of what it brings and what it shares, and how it does that, and also how it receives when it needs to. And I think this vision for creating continued support through that journey, because once the leaders are empowered with this story, that's the next level. But I'm sure the hope for all of you is that now, with that strength, they're able to elevate the message and go farther and faster. And so but yeah, that support system is such an incredible part of that, an important part of that journey, that I think that's super smart and super important, and ties in really well to us thinking about, about our home here on the earth, is how are we, because as humans, we've certainly taken a lot, and how do we
Yeah.
replenish that? How do we give some of our roots back to nourish the things that we've taken? And I think the sequoia tree is a beautiful, beautiful example of that. And so as we wrap with that, there's always a question that I love to ask here at the end, because overall, I'm deciding where the bumpers on this conversation goes for the most part. But I
Yeah.
always like to then open up the gates and go, what is it that
Oh.
I missed? What would you have liked to have talked about? What would you wish I would have asked about?
Oh, okay. There was something that came at the end when we were talking about relationship and this mutual life-giving relationship, which I have a feeling people are hungry for. I know I have been. I know during the pandemic, we didn't have a lot of that. And maybe it helped most of us realize how badly we need it, uh, to feel whole and to be able to feel like we're fulfilling our purpose. And so this is where for me, like I'll 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 kind of tie this up the best I can. But in studying human design, and this idea that similarly that we are also energy, and we have this life force, and we all have a different blueprint of what our energy and our life force in our body and what it's able to do and magnetize is different in each person. And it's that way on purpose, because then we actually operate like magnets to each other, and we can help accelerate people moving forward or pitch in other places. And so I've become really fascinated with the idea of understanding our internal energy system and how it relates, and we can actually mutually charge each other up in ways that help us to build sustainable leadership. Or when you talk about movements, like anybody who does have a heart for leaving a legacy, it's like we know making a movement is hard, hard, and you're not going to feel like you have that energy all the time. And you're not sure you're making the right decisions all the time, because things do get complex. And even for weavers, like as a weaver, I will say, I do love complexity. And boy, I can get stuck in the cobwebs of complexity and not sure I'm making my own aligned decisions. And so human design has, as I got certified in it, has helped me to understand the operating manual of how my own energetic blueprint works, how it interacts with other people, so that we can actually create more with less effort, which I think for movement makers is super important, because this is bold ass work. Sorry. And, and be able to re energize ourselves or help energize other people. And then the other piece of it is it shows us where in each of our bodies, where that knowing, that place of aligned decision making really lives. So for some of us, it's follow your gut is great advice. For some of us, follow your heart is great advice, and so on. And so I think it's really affirming to understand the operating manual of ourselves, so that we can, again, click in more often to our energy, our creativity, click into how our voice is naturally magnetic instead of trying to force ourselves to present a certain way. It's like we can have a big fat permission slip to just say, oh, I've been trying to master these things, but why don't I just cultivate the things I'm good at, right? Like the superpowers you talked about. And it even can change the chemistry or improve the chemistry and the energy dynamics of who we collaborate with when we talk about relationships. And I've even seen, uh, I've experimented with, even as I've been teaming up with people, I just pay attention to how am I feeling energetically with, like in this conversation. Are we activating each other's creativity? Is this person, And then later I'll ask permission, would you be interested in me taking a look at your human design? And then we look side by side and we actually see the spots where we manifest, like we're actually connecting dots for each other, because none of us were meant to do it alone. So that's the last thing I wanted to share. Was I feel like that's another tool that reminds me we all have something different to contribute and nobody has the whole answer. And we can give each other grace and permission to like live in alignment and flow of who each of us are, that we are going to have more joy and energy in our purpose, and that we're going to have more mutually life-giving relationships too.
Powerful. Powerful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And I love that that kind of brought us back to the chronological place where it's, you know, the work that you're doing, that it seems like the human design is where you're really leaning into and where you're finding the fun and the information. And so I love that you bringing that up as the piece of that was still missing, was the piece that really is you know, really present for you and kind of in the foreseeable future for you. So I'm delighted you brought us back to that place, and just so grateful to have you here today and to have you in my life. And thank you to everybody who tuned in to listen to this. I hope that it felt as awe-inspiring as it did in this moment, in this body, as I experience it. So thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Amber. And I'm so glad that we're in community with each other too.
Hey, Earthmate. How did that episode resonate? Did it stretch you, inspire you, or perhaps irk you? I'm here for it, so please reach out. Besides the socials, we have a community to practice with on our website, eartharchetypes.com, where more Earth archetypes can guide your path and become dear friends. A great place to start is the quiz to discover your type. Oh, and on your way, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button. See you again soon.